and welcome back to Morgs Menu. So today is going to be part 2 of my 2-part video series, or whatever you want to call it, of all of my Thanksgiving recipes. The first part, I showed you how I make my crockpot ham and roasted turkey, so if you haven't seen that, I'll link it on the screen here so you can go and watch that after this video. But this video is going to be all about the sides. I think the best part of Thanksgiving for me are all the sides between the mac and cheese and the stuffing. Sweet potato casserole, just everything is so delicious. So I wanted to dedicate a video showing you the 5 sides that we typically do on Thanksgiving and how I'm going to be making them for my family. So I'm going to be showing you a crockpot mac and cheese, crockpot green beans, stuffing, sweet potato casserole, and mashed potatoes. And as I mentioned in the first part of the Thanksgiving recipes, I tested all of these recipes using either a third or half size of the actual recipes that I'll be making on Thanksgiving. So as I did for that one, I'll show you on the screen written exactly what you would need for the large size that you would need to make it for a large group on Thanksgiving. But what I'm actually going to be making is only going to make like 4 to 6 servings depending on the recipes. So just wanted to note that in case you haven't seen the first part, but without further ado, let's get started.
So we'll start with my favorite recipe first, which is the crockpot mac and cheese. This recipe I've done a bunch of times over the past couple Thanksgivings, so it's perfect, don't change a thing. So we'll start with a little Velveeta cheese, shredded cheddar cheese, macaroni noodles, eggs, some coconut milk. Now you can use either this or evaporated milk, both will work fine, but if you use the coconut milk, make sure you get the full fat version. And then we also need some regular milk, salt and pepper, and butter. First thing you want to do is go ahead and cook your macaroni noodles according to the box instructions, minus 3 minutes. Then you want to prep your crock pot with a little spray, and from here all you have to do is add all the ingredients in. So you'll add in the cooked macaroni noodles, melted butter, milk, both kinds of cheese, whisked eggs, and salt and pepper. Now for the Velveeta cheese, you're going to want to cut this up into cubes just so that it melts a little bit easier. Once you've got everything added, just give it a quick stir. You don't have to worry about combining it too much now because it's going to be a lot easier to get everything mixed together once the cheese and everything starts melting down. So you want to go ahead and set your crock pot to low and cook it for about 2.5 hours, stirring every 30 minutes to an hour. Alright, and here is the final product. Super simple to pull together. I like doing the mac and cheese in the crock pot just because it takes another thing out of the oven when you're trying to balance everything between the stuffing and the casseroles and everything like that. Mac and cheese is a super easy way to just throw that in a crock pot, let it do its thing, and just stir it every once in a while. And the other crock pot item is our green beans. So these are going to be like Southern-style green beans. So we of course need some cooking spray, some fresh green beans, onion, bacon, chicken stock or broth, and salt and pepper. So you want to start by preheating your oven to 400 degrees, and that is to cook up your bacon. Now I believe I've talked about this multiple times before, but just in case you need a refresher, basically all I do is take a large baking sheet, either throw down some aluminum foil or cooking spray, throw down however many pieces of bacon that you need, and then put it into a cold oven. Let it cook until the oven gets warm. Once the oven is warm to the 400 degrees, then you want to take the bacon out and flip it over to the other side. Then you're going to put it back into the oven and cook for about 5 to 15 additional minutes depending on the number of pieces you're baking or the thickness. So the next step is just to go ahead and slice up our onion. You could either dice this or slice it, whichever will be fine. Because these green beans were pretty long, I did slices and it turned out great. So you just want to slice it into thin slices to add to the crock pot. So now we're just throwing everything in. So again, spray your crock pot with some cooking spray, add in your fresh green beans, add in your sliced onion and your chicken stock, salt and pepper, and the crumbled up bacon. Now you'll see here that I only added about a cup of the chicken stock in the beginning. However, about 20 minutes into it, I went ahead and added a lot more. You basically want to add enough so that it reaches the top of the green beans so that they all cook evenly. I just wasn't exactly sure how much to do and then realized that they weren't going to cook evenly if they weren't all in the chicken broth. So you're going to cook this on high for about 4 hours, stirring every once in a while. And here's what they'll look like when they're done. So they'll get nice and soft, the onions will be nice and soft, and the bacon gives it a really nice flavor. They're really, really delicious. If you need to make this into a vegetarian version, you could just use vegetable broth and remove the bacon and it would still be really good. Alright, and now moving on to the sweet potato casserole. So for this, we're going to need some whole wheat flour or regular flour, butter, obviously some sweet potatoes, milk, pecan pieces, brown sugar, salt and vanilla extract, egg, and regular granulated white sugar. So we'll start by preheating our oven to 400 degrees. And then you want to go ahead and prep up your pan so that we can bake our sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes kind of give off a weird kind of juice almost when they bake in the oven. That's the wrong term, but I would recommend putting some aluminum foil down because it can be really tough to clean the pan if you don't. So all you really need to do is just pierce the potatoes with a fork to create some holes so that they can aerate in the oven. Spray them with a little cooking spray and then add them into your oven. Now for these, it took about an hour for them to cook fully because they were pretty big. So typically an hour is pretty standard for your regular size sweet potatoes. Now once that hour is up and your sweet potatoes have cooled off so they're cool enough to handle, you're going to go ahead and just peel them. Sweet potatoes are super easy because the skin really separates when it's cooking, so you can almost just like rip it off with your hands. You don't have to worry about getting a peeler out or anything like that. So then adding into the bowl with your sweet potatoes, you want to add in your milk, the white sugar, an egg, vanilla extract, and salt. Then you're going to use a hand mixer and just get that mixed all together till it's basically smooth, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It can have a few clumps in it. Then in a smaller bowl, you're going to add in your brown sugar, flour, and butter. For the butter, you want to dice it up into little small cubes so it'll be easy to mash together. So then you want to just take a fork and mash everything together so that it gets combined. And at the end, take a spoon to give it a nice last stir. Then you're going to add in your chopped pecans and give those a stir to get them combined. This is going to be the topping to the casserole. So now we're just going to take our baking pan, spray it with a little cooking spray. The first layer is going to be our sweet potato mixture. And the second layer is going to be the brown sugar mixture. So both, just make sure you spread them evenly across the pan. So here's what it'll look like when it's ready to be put into the oven. So we're going to bake this in our oven at 400 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes. The recipe itself called for 30 to 35, but however, even with the small batch, I ended up leaving it in for almost 40, so I would imagine with a big batch, probably 40 to 45 would be what you would want to do. But here it is, all nice and browned on top. The topping on this was to die for. I loved it. Alrighty, and now we have our stuffing mix. So your classic Thanksgiving stuffing. So we have some regular white bread. This is gluten-free, but you can use whatever you need. Chicken broth, onion, butter, celery. And then for our spices, we need some poultry seasoning, parsley, thyme, salt, and pepper. So we're going to start by preheating our oven to 350 degrees. Then you want to go ahead and dice up your vegetables. So we'll start with our onion here. So now, because this was a half recipe, I only needed half of it. And then same thing for the celery. You want to go ahead and slice that into small little pieces, about the same size that you cut the onion. Now we're going to go ahead and cut up the bread. So basically you just want to cube it into small cubes. And I just put it in a measuring cup and then kept cutting slices until I had the amount that I needed. You could take the crust off here if you wanted to, but you would take a lot more slices, so I just left them on. Now at a pan at medium heat, we're going to cook up our onions and celery. So we'll start by adding a decent amount of butter into the pan, melt that down, and then add in the vegetables. And in the cooking process, you also want to add in the poultry seasoning. And then go ahead and just cook that down until the onions and celery start to become soft. You don't want them to be so cooked that they're like brown on the outside, but translucent and soft would be perfect for this. Now we're going to add those cooked vegetables into our cubed bread. Then we're going to add in our chicken broth. So you want to slowly add this in, making sure that you don't add too much chicken broth for the bread. So you kind of want to put it in, stir it around, make sure that it's just starting to get moist, but it doesn't get soggy, because the amount of moisture that's added is going to stay in the bread during the cooking process. So then we're going to add in our thyme and our parsley. You could add other seasonings if you wanted to as well at this point, but I like those too. So I added those in and then just gave everything a nice stir before we add it to the pan. So again, just spray our pan with some cooking spray so nothing sticks, and add everything in. Once you've got your even layer, then you're going to take some butter and cube it up into small cubes and arrange those cubes around the top of the stuffing mixture. Then you're going to cover it with a little aluminum foil and bake for about 35 minutes. After that time is up, take the foil off and bake for another 10 to 15 minutes. It'll just start to brown at the top when it's done. And here's the final product. This was really good. Even with the gluten-free bread, it turned out delicious, just like you would expect homemade stuffing to be. And last, we'll do the easiest one, our mashed potatoes. So very simply, you just need some potatoes, sour cream or plain Greek yogurt, butter, and salt and pepper. So all we really have to do is go ahead and prep up the potatoes for this. So I just cut everything into nice small cubes. You want to make sure they're as even as possible and they're pretty small so they don't take too long to cook. Now you can also peel these before you cube them if you want to. I personally like the peelings in mashed potatoes, so I left them on, but that's all a personal preference on what you and your family would like. And then we're just going to add some cold water to the pot up until it's covering the potatoes and bring that to a boil. Once it's boiling, boil it for about 15 to 20 minutes. Once they're nice and soft, go ahead and add them back into your pot or into a mixing bowl. Add in your sour cream and butter and your salt and pepper. The amounts are really going to depend on a personal preference. Then you will just want to take a spoon and get everything mixed together. If you want them to be super creamy, I recommend using a serving bowl and using a hand mixer. That's typically how we do that on Thanksgiving to get them nice and smooth, but just for this, did it with a spoon, and so they were a little bit lumpy but still really delicious. And here's the final product, some nice yummy mashed potatoes.
Alright guys, and that concludes today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and is helpful for you if you have to make any recipes on Thanksgiving or if you want to make them for yourself in the future for just a regular weekday night. As always, if you have any questions on any of the recipes, leave me a comment down below. I'll be happy to answer any of the questions that you have. Also, as I mentioned, a lot of these recipes were new to me, which is why I wanted to test them out. So I'll link the original recipes that I followed for any of them down below. Don't forget to check out part 1 if you haven't yet, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the videos that I post on Wednesdays and Sundays. Thanks again for watching Morgs Menu, and hope you have a great day. Bye!